friends, I'm Amelia.
And I'm Danielle.
And welcome to Sibyl's Gab. This is the series where two card lovers chat about whatever we want. And this week we are digging into the philosophy of irreverence. So what is it and why is it foundational to our practice and also to Sibyl's lab?
We are going to do something a little bit different today. So after introducing the decks that we're working with, we're going to sort of dig into and excavate this idea of irreverence by answering a few wisdom questions, what Rachel Pollack calls wisdom questions. This is a fancy term for navel gazing, existential woo-woo questions. We'll see what we can make of them, what the tarot does. But first, let's do a sort of dictionary definition of the word irreverence. It's not a word that we use often, and it's helpful to know what the official meaning is. So according to the dictionary, irreverence is, quote, a lack of respect for people or things that are generally taken seriously. It's not a very flattering definition, especially for tarot people in a tarot video. So we'll see what we can make of that. If it leaves, we have a better feeling in our mouths by the time that we're all done. But stay with that formal definition. Let it marinate while we introduce these decks, and then we're going to jump right into our questions.
Okay, so my decks that I'll be working with today are the Tarot des Ozarks. I've shown this before. This is also pretty well known on the internet. It is a TDM-ish, TDM adjacent, very heavily inspired by it. And I actually use TDM for a lot of this type of work. I use it for work with irreverence. I also use it for wisdom questions. TDM loves a Zen mindset, and I find that is really valuable when we're talking about irreverence. I also pulled out for something a bit more scenic. I pulled out the Desert Illuminations Tarot by Lindsay D. Williams. This is a fun, colorful, kind of Southwestern themed tarot. There are aliens, there are chili peppers. It's a delight. I have the indie version, but it's mass market now, so you can pretty easily get it. And then as a wild card, I may or may not pull this one out. This is an old deck to my collection, and that's the Gypsy Palace Tarot. This is no longer in print, but this is, it's just wild. The colors are luscious and delicious, but it also isn't afraid to go there, and can get really deep and kind of serious at times. So I'm curious to see it in context, especially with the questions that we ask, but I may or may not pull this one out. But to that point, I do want to point out that you don't have to have a fun, playful deck in order to do playful, irreverent work with tarot. You can pull any tarot deck, and it is completely possible to do this type of work. We just love playing with pretty cards. So those came out. What are you going to be working with, Danielle?
I am working with two decks. They're both sort of cheeky. They bring lightness to any conversation. The first one is Wisdom of the Depth Tarot by Lynn Thurman. It's seasonally appropriate. I think it's a beautiful, fun, brightly colored deck, a little bit of collage, a lot of energy. And the second deck that I'll be using is Tarot Mania's Tarot Lubach. I am using my trimmed edition and edged edition. This is their more recently published English language version. It is funny, comic, very narrative. We love to see it, and I think it'll bring some good energy to these questions as well. So let's see what we come up with.
All right, well, let's jump in. So our first question that we are going to be asking the cards is, thinking about the official definition of irreverence. It calls it a lack of respect, but it's fair to say that both Danielle and myself have a deep respect for tarot. So what exactly do we mean when we say that Sibyl's lab embraces irreverence? Yeah, I'm going to pull out the Tarot des Ozarks.
I'll be using Tarot Lubak, and we were planning on each sort of doing our own readings with between 2 and 3 cards. So I'll pull probably 2 cards and say what my reading says and put our readings in conversation. Okay, my cards are the King of Swords. We have the King killing the dragon, no holds barred. We're coming in for the kill, and we have the Sun. Very also seasonally appropriate. It's a lot of fire, masculine, powerful energy. So let me
I
sit.
love that Sun. I also have the King of Swords in my reading. I have the Ten of Cups, the Nine of Batons, and the King of Swords. That's interesting. I wonder what our 2 kings have to say to each other.
Yeah. So I'll just talk through my reading a little bit. The King of Swords, he is relentless. He is no nonsense. He's coming in for the kill. Whatever fantasies you have, he's not, he has no patience for it. I think there's something here, and he's going in for the kill of the Sun. I think there's something here about like sort of brightness and fun with a sting. I don't know. I want to think about what it means, because irreverence isn't just play. Like, let's say that Sibyl's Lab is just about play and fun and like going in the sun and having a good time. I think there's something here in Irreverence about a sort of kind of stinging play. Like, we're suggesting that there is play with a bite or something. So I want to think about that. What'd you get in your reading?
So in mine, the King of, let me make sure I've got it in the right direction. Okay, the King of Swords is looking away from our 9 of Wands or 9 of Batons and our 10 of Cups here. And I think, thinking about the 9 and 10 just as numbers of either near completion or completion themselves, I think what we mean by irreverence is we kind of reject this idea that we're done or that we're near done. There is more to learn. There is more to be discovered. There is more to excavate and explore. And this idea of fixed knowledge and fixed understanding. I think when we say we are irreverent, it's that we kind of we're really comfortable with saying, I don't know, but let's find out. And I think, and all that comes with it, all of the exploration that can come with it. What do you think our 2 King of Swords have to say to each other?
I'm looking at him. My King of Swords is attacking a dragon. Most of us think they're not real. Some think they're real. But like the imaginative monster, there's something here that feels like, hey, indulge that, right? Irreverence is indulging our sort of creative, playful minds. But the king is going to come in swinging because we're doing play and imagination, but with tarot. And there's something here about the slice. I don't know. I think I just like tarot that stings. So I'm looking for it to fit everywhere. But what do you think your king says?
I mean, yeah, I think, well, it's also interesting. So he's cut off 2 of the 3 heads of the dragon there. My king is not quite that active. He is a much more passive king. He is seated, but he's also looking away. And he's looking kind of down. Like, he's not really looking in a direction necessarily. And I think he is, it's that quality that when someone says that tarot is this, the king says, no, it's not. The king's like, I don't hear that. I don't know what you're talking about. And to me, your king, who's like cutting off the heads of the dragon, almost affirms that. It's like, here's this dragon who says they have all of the answers, and the king is like, watch me.
I like this sun. This sun feels like a reminder that irreverence and play are work of a certain kind. We're not saying go play mindlessly. We're saying have fun mindfully with the cards in hand. There is deliberation there. There's sort of thoughtfulness. It's just a fun work, right? Like work in a deep way, not work in a like, being on the assembly line way. But all right, so let's get on to our next question. We've both talked about flexibility, having a tarot that can do all sorts of things, and how it's crucial to our irreverent approach. We're saying that tarot can do a lot here. So what does it mean in a general sense or in a deeper way to suggest that cartomancy and flexibility are important to each other? So kind of what does flexibility mean in divination? Or I'm going to go ahead and grab Wisdom of the Depths. What are you using for this one?
I'm using the Desert Illuminations.
As we shuffle, it's a tricky thing. So I enjoy getting these fun and playful, irreverent decks out, but it's always difficult when you're reading for clients and they might bring a serious question about grief or fertility or whatever. I don't want my deck to be too funny. So it's like, it's an interesting thing. It's nice to think that there are all kinds of tarot, and if my decks aren't suited to one kind of work, that there's play that they can do. But I'd love to know what people think about bringing like Tarot Lubach to a question about grief or something. I got the Sun again. So I got the Knight of Pentacles. Look at that strong man with the nice thighs on his turtle, his sea turtle. And we have the Sun. She rides like a monster seahorse. I'm sure that somebody knows the name of that creature, or maybe that's a fantasy creature. I don't know. What'd you get?
I got the Four of Daggers and the Page of Chilies, which is the wand suit in this deck.
Looking at these images, right? So who do we have? The Knight of Pentacles is known as the slowest of the knights, like the mindfully paced. I've called the Knight of Pentacles the knight that you cheat on. Although I have to say, I think he's my favorite knight. Anyway, so
that's my Deacon card. So
but here he is on the sea turtle, staying balanced on anything that moves, even when it's moving slowly. I mean, I guess it gives you thigh muscles like this, but he is stable. He's, he is paced. He's secure. This is riding rushing waters. This is like bright under the high sun, riding a maybe fake creature. I don't think this is a real creature. Do you know?
I don't think that's real.
People, I promise I'm smart about something. And she's wearing a crown, but the water is rushing and certainly not calm. Like there is a combination juxtaposition here between doing the steady, slow, responsible, paced, thoughtful, mindful work, and then like jumping on the monster and riding the waves. I kind of love that. I want to think about that more for just a minute, but what'd you come up with?
So I'm like immediately kind of drawn to this almost reflection of the chili peppers and the Page of Chilies to where the kind of arms and the fourth dagger are on the Four of Daggers. And it has me thinking about like kind of, I don't know, as cliche as it sounds, like listening to the heart and listening to that kind of intuitive sense that we all have. And that flexibility is about kind of like shutting down the mind for a second, saying like, hey, you can take a break while I really feel my way into it. And not in I mean, we're still dealing with the chilies. So we're dealing with fire, we're dealing with spice. Like this isn't like, this isn't an emotional process necessarily, but it is, it's one that the mind can get in the way of. And so we have to kind of shut that down first before we can really follow those impulses. I love the Page of Wands. I think it's my favorite court card. When people ask me for my court card, I always pick the Page of Wands. I think there's something so playful about them. There's something so willing to explore. This one is so interesting though, because he's got his brimmed hat and he's looking down, like you can't see his face. And so he's like really kind of going within for that. He's not, this isn't an external exploration here. And so I think, yeah, when we talk about flexibility, we talk about like really listening to ourselves and following those impulses where they lead.
I like that.
I think that's where I want to leave that.
Sitting with this a little bit more, I think this is a suggestion or an invitation to slowly and mindfully try the rushing waves. It feels like it's saying, sure, we're suggesting tarot can do all of these fun things, take you on like the sea ride or whatever. But if you've never tried tarot for watching a television show or like, playing murder mystery games or reading for your pet or doing ancestor work, this is give it a paced shot, a little bit at a time. You don't have to rush to see what tarot can do. Test out the way that it's flexible for you, because we're not suggesting that flexibility means tarot can and should do all things for all people. So the man with the thighs, man, I'm so out of shape.
Well, I think these two kind of in conversation together, like the two readings. I mean, yeah, it is like, I find that when we're talking about being flexible with tarot, what we're kind of ultimately saying is to slow down. It's to not just jump into what we think we know and what we're like determined tarot is or isn't. It's to like, I don't know, really pay attention to like, okay, where are its limits? And I think a lot of that involves a little bit of like trying something and then checking in, trying something and checking in. Like it's a lot of, just like dipping your toe in. You don't have to go full in all the way, but dipping the toe in and then seeing like, how does that feel? Did it feel right? Did it work? And then, going a little bit further each time.
I like that.
All right. So for our third question, we have a pair of short and somewhat serious questions that aren't completely obvious subjects for irreverent readings. And our first question is, what is the meaning of fear? And our second question is, what is the meaning of fearlessness? So are we going to read for both of these questions at the same time or do one question at a time?
I think so. I'm just kind of asking my deck, let's do fear.
Let's talk about fear.
Yeah, help me work with this one. And I have to say, I'm going with Tara Lubach, the Slavic tradition of fear and darkness and whatever. There's a little bit of that shadow buried in the Tarot Lubach. So I think it's a good choice for this. Are you back to Tarot des Ozarks?
Yes.
Okay. I got the Six of Wands. Man, rooster, wreath, big rooster.
Big rooster energy there.
Yes. And the Eight of Swords. This is not just confinement. This is confinement with people around you being, dragged around, bound. And there's something, I think, profoundly painful, not just about being bound, but being bound with an audience. There's something especially dark in that. So I'm going to sit with these a minute. What did you get?
Okay, so I got the 6 of coins, the Chariot, and the 6 of cups.
Ooh. This feels really on the nose here, right? So we have our roostered man like on the move, right? Like riding on a conveyance that happens to be a rooster, and we have a bound creature wrapped up, tied up on a sled, riding on a conveyance. There seems to be something here at like a deep angst that if we put ourselves out there, if we let our light shine, try it, take the risk, pull attention our way, that this is how it's going to turn out. So, like, you better stay in the corner, because the risk is that if you do this, which is nice, it's nice to be the center of attention. This is kind of horrific. That this is what it means to that this is actually what might happen if we put ourselves out there. So there's something about people seeing us. Like, fear is not just the stuff that's held in. There's something about like what it means for others to observe or be around or define how we experience that fear. What are you getting in your cards?
So I'm like immediately struck by the sixes here. There's something about, I mean, even visually, the way these are kind of laid out, there's an ease to the sixes, right? Like this one is so, look at all that blank space. For a deck that doesn't have a ton of blank space on many of the cards, here is a card with a lot of blank space. And then the way these sixes are lined up in 2 columns, like it is easy to tread the path that others have tread before you. And I think where fear kind of comes in is that if we veer off of that path, then we are the ones in control. There's nobody kind of telling us which way to go or what's right and what's wrong, and that we lose that ease. We lose that kind of knowing of what is coming next. We lose that predictability. And so I think fear is it's like fear of the unknown, fear of not knowing what we're facing, and then also fear of being on our own on a path that might ultimately be difficult. Yeah, I think that's where I want to kind of.
You said that's is that the chariot in the middle?
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at this too. There's something about fear that feels, any of us who've been in a dark place, it feels like it'll never end. Like it feels unstoppable. Like there's no end in sight. The train is moving and there's no pausing it. Because if we thought this is a bummer of a moment, or there is anxiety or fear attached to this, but it'll be over tomorrow, it would be one thing, but it's not that. There's something deeper, at least in these readings of fear. So I'm fascinated by that sort of chariot and the way that it moves with these, and feels like, fear is the train that we can't stop or something.
I mean, look at all of these sixes though. Like,
yeah,
to be in comfort, right? We like that is the 6, right? Is to be in a space that we know, to be in a space that we feel comfortable, in fact, feel excellent, if we're looking at the 6 of Wands that you have there. Yeah. And I think fear of losing that, of losing that place of prominence and that place of ease and comfortability, that's fear, right? Like fear is what we don't know.
It so is. Yeah, those hands down there. So we see him and we see like the little people, but there's some like he fears that okay, they're cheering for him, but what if this is actually what they're waiting to do to him? There's like, I love the stories in these cards. All right, I love this. Our next question, it's my turn. Our next question is a more obvious question for lovers of irreverence. So not fear or something sort of shadowy, but what is the meaning of play? Both as a tarot practice, but as kind of a life philosophy. What is play? I'm back to Wisdom of the Depths. We're changing it up again. How about you?
I'll go back to Desert Illuminations.
It feels like our decks are becoming friends.
I know. I'm waiting for the moment to pull out Gypsy Palace. I love that deck so much.
You know, do you elementally identify your decks? This feels obviously watery, right? Wisdom of the Depth. And your deck looks, I have a copy of that deck. It looks like it's on fire. It looks like such a hot, packed, like power driven deck. I wonder if they'll give answers to this that resonate with those elements in particular. Let's see.
Fascinating.
All right, I'll share mine. I got the Three of Pentacles. We have these two figures. Are they like collecting crabs on the sand, or there's something they're gathering on the sand there? So they're collaborating to do some kind of work in collecting things on the sand. And we have the devil here. That is a horrifying looking sea creature. There is nothing scarier than like a multi-legged sea creature that's incredibly intelligent. So
No. I do not do open water. I do not do creatures coming out of the darkness of open water.
That's waiting for you.
No. Okay. So I got the Hierophant and the Five of Coins, which in this deck, I think she technically calls it Cactus, but it's the coins, which is a desert with a longhorn skull, and we have UFOs flying away.
For this Three of Pentacles, and I'll say this is true, there seems to be something here about play happening in collaboration. Just like we say that like the magic of tarot happens between the cards, that the magic of like play in life, in cards, and whatever really happens in relationship. I understood and enjoyed the play of tarot better when our little tarot group of like several women got together and did tarot, like we're playful with it, and it was our place to not be serious when life was really serious. So I really like that suggestion that play happens in partnership or in group, that it's supportive. Let's sit with this devil. How about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what's so interesting, there's nothing playful about either of these two cards, right? But when I think of the Hierophant, I mean, the Hierophant is almost like a conduit for something not of this world to life that is very much in this world. And I think of play as being almost, it is the ability to have a certain level of imagination and a certain ability to kind of see beyond what's there, right? It's an ability to see fruitfulness where there might be lack, or to kind of spin situations and look at them from different angles and see, like, it's so interesting. I say like imagination to see what's not there, but I think it really is more about like taking a minute to look at what's actually there, because I think our first impression of a lot of situations is we're always going to kind of act act from fear at the outright. We're always going to act from this place of lack. And play is having a little bit more kind of openness to possibilities beyond that lack and what we kind of initially see in a situation. And then, yeah, I think play is definitely kind of like, I don't know, not necessarily communicating with the beyond, but like being in conversation with something that isn't here, right? It's being in conversation with something that's kind of beyond just, the nuts and bolts of every day. I always think of play as almost a holy act, like as something that's really sacred. I say this as like a teacher of theater who works with, both very young children all the way through adults. But it is, the play is the thing. It's where we find meaning. It's where we find kind of spiritual knowledge and spiritual truth. That allows us to kind of go into our lives and instead of seeing lack, seeing possibility.
He's such a counterpoint to the devil. I sort of like that. That's an interesting counterpoint. As I was sitting with this, I was sort of thinking about the devil. When I explain that card to people and they get it in a reading, there is like the reflexive, like, that's bad news. We don't like to see him. But I think the light of the devil, like the light side of the card, is hey, indulge your own self-interest, like indulge temptation, lean into it, it's okay. And there seems to be something here that says play is completely just for yourself. I know that is like such our Protestant work ethic resists that in every way, right? There's no virtue in indulging ourselves. We need to be productive. We need to do tarot that is like deep work, or like use, be engaging at all times in something transformative or productive or whatever. This is like, no, just play a game, right? Just do what you feel like doing. Go ahead and binge on Netflix. I so project that. I'm always talking about binging on Netflix, but go ahead and do that just for the afternoon and pull out your tarot deck if you want to. Like, just indulge yourself. I love that. Sometimes to recharge, we need to indulge our own self-interest. And I don't know a card that is better suited to like, hey, feed your senses just because, not because it's good for anything except what you feel like doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And do it in company.
Yes, always better in company. Always better.
All right, what's our last question? I'm going to pull out Tarot Lubak again.
Okay, so what are obstacles to irreverence in divination and in life? And with all things, for Danielle and myself, like it's never just about divination, it's always about life too. But what are some obstacles that we might have to irreverence? No, she doesn't want to come out. I was going to see if the Gypsy Palace wanted to come out, but she's like, not now. So we'll go back to Tarot des Ozarks.
I have the 8 of Coins and the Ace of Cups.
Work.
All right, let's sit with these. What cards did you get?
Hold on, I'm pulling them. Okay. Ooh, lots of people cards. So I got the Page of Cups, the Knight of Swords, and the Knight of Cups.
Ooh.
I mean, gosh, I don't know about you, but I am always looking over my shoulder. It's just a trauma response.
Just you.
But, there's always kind of back to this idea of playing just for us, play being just for us. Like,
yeah.
there's always this kind of pressure, whether it be real or not, that we have to be productive in some sort of way, that we have to, even down to our tarot work has to, like, it has to have results, right? Like, it has to have a meaning there. It has to have some sort of, deep wisdom or reverence to it. And so I feel like these knights are just coming at this page who just wants to, like, he just wants to check out his cup here. He just wants to see what's going on, what are the possibilities in there. And here these knights come with the truth and reason and all of the real things that we're supposed, the Knight of Cups has the Holy Grail, for Pete's sake. He's like, here, we are seeking, we are questing. And the page is so happy to just be with it and to just be like in this moment with this cup. What can I find out? And I think there's that like pressure and drive that we feel to seek, to quest, to conquer. And that
this you live with two humans. Do you think that there's anything literal in there? I mean, you as like the lady of the house are supporting and meeting other people's needs in the way that we do when we live in partnership with people. Do you think there's anything to that?
No, what this feels like more to me is like, if I were to read this for myself, this would be less about like the people in my life, my actual life necessarily, so much as like the expectations of like, what is divination? How can I be serious? How can I be a serious tarot reader? Yeah.
This feels so true for me. I very much identify with this reading. There seems to be a fear, right? That if we're doing important work in our lives in some way, like we have a deeper vocation that isn't just play or irreverence. Like in my mind, it should be that way, like not just irreverence. However, there's a fear that if we leave this and do irreverence, that we're going to get sucked in, right? Like a not trusting yourself to just dip your toe in, but like you're going to get in a spiral of having fun and like not become responsible you again, or not get back to the work in time or whatever. I like that. There's something here, and maybe it's because I sort of identify with that. It's like if I get out of serious mode and I go do something playful, or I bring too much non-seriousness to whatever the work is, am I going to get derailed completely for the day? There's something interesting to that, getting sucked into the big glass of wine.
Look at the mirror here, though, between this page and your Ace of Cups. Look at that cup with the red inside.
There's a lot of symmetry in our cards.
These two decks like each other.
They do.
They play well. Yeah, I think, yeah, there is this like expectation of what tarot is, of what life is, and especially once you become an adult and you have all of these responsibilities, like there's always going to be something telling you that there is more worthy work to be done. And I think, yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
All right. Before we wrap up, we wanted to leave everybody with like 3, what we're calling axioms. That's such a serious word. 3 to sum up our sort of lab philosophy about irreverence. So how to invite irreverence into your practice at home in 3 really distilled and specific ways. What to keep in mind when you leave this video, aside from the fact that we are just 2 very entertaining ladies who enjoy answering wisdom questions. So Amelia, what is our first axiom?
So our first is that irreverence is about flexibility and thinking. So we're stopping the routine of, I know this meaning, I know this card, going through our Rolodex of definitions that we have in our head, we all do, and taking a second look and looking at, like, what does this actually look like? What story is this card actually telling? When we are reading, this is why I love the Tarot de Marseille so much, is because it kind of forces you to do that. I mean, there's a way to read TDM that is, here is a number, here is a suit, and use kind of a formulaic approach, if you will. But it's so much more delicious and fun when we can look at the stories that are being told. For example, we'll use this last reading that I did, where we have our knights who are coming for our poor page. Like, what is the story that's actually being told here? And, I think, we talk about this as like a practice of irreverence, right? But this is also a practice of mindfulness. And as in all things, you tug on one string and other parts of the web of your life are affected. When we allow ourselves the space to be mindful and flexible in how we view our cards, we're also practicing how to be flexible as we move through our lives, to really look at the situations as they come up in our lives and actually, like, see them for what they are and not for what we think they are. Am I anxious about something that is actually happening, or am I anxious about the possibility of something that could happen? And really giving ourselves working that muscle that allows us to stop and think and actually look at what's in front of us. What do you have anything to add to that?
I don't think so. I really like that explanation. That is a good summation of our axiom. And I think mindfulness captures it for me. I really like understanding that as a form of mindfulness. All right, our second axiom, my very favorite: to be fearless as a cartomancer, to be shameless as a fortune teller, and bring your card reading to your life in a way that you wouldn't typically do it, because you're typically afraid to introduce it into that part of your life. Now, this does not mean telling everyone in your life that you read tarot cards, not because you're ashamed of sharing it with people, because it's not really shrewd at all jobs and in all places to share tarot with people. You may not want to read for grandma. You may not want to tell your colleagues that you do tarot. For me, fearlessness and shamelessness was about waiting until I got tenure and then just telling everyone, all of my colleagues, that I read tarot and putting it on my syllabi. I think that I started doing this because somebody told me once when I was doing my research that you should always lead with your weakness. Like, here's my weakness as a researcher. I'm going to tell you before you can, inoculate myself. So I think that's why I do that. That's why I tell everybody that I read trashy romance novels. Like, you're not going to catch me. Like, I already told you that. So lead with your weakness, embrace what would typically be your shame, and share it in some way that you wouldn't normally do that. Maybe it means going to a coffee shop and publicly digging it out of the bag where it's normally hidden, because I know you've carried a deck around with you, even if you don't normally pull it out. Maybe it means, if it's safe to do it at work, pulling it out in the lunchroom, the break room. But whatever that looks like for you, find a half an hour this week when you would normally be too anxious to do that. Give your embarrassment a break and really take a risk and share it shamelessly. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something like the like external expression of fearlessness, and then there's also like the internal expression of that, which is being afraid to try something new. Because also, like, especially if it's a practice that you're just doing alone on your own, no one's going to see it. No one's going to see you mess up. No one's going to see that weird reading that you gave, because you were trying something new. And so I think, yeah, definitely, like, forgetting a rule or two that and just seeing what it's like to not abide by that or to try something very different from what you're used to.
I like understanding it as breaking the rules. I like that. Lay them out on the table however you want. Don't use a spread. Be fearless.
Yes, absolutely. And our third and final axiom, and my own favorite, is to make a mess and embrace play. There are so many ways that you can use tarot for play. Danielle and I do these quite often with each other and with our little group of friends where we get together and do tarot. We will play games with tarot. I mean, there is the game of Taroki, which I have played before. Yes, with a Thoth deck. That's in my... The full story for that is in my 3-for-3 tag that I did a few videos back. So if you want to find out, you can go back and watch that. But there's also, you can tell stories with your decks. You can use tarot to help you make low stakes choices. You know, I use it sometimes to help me make a grocery list or figure out what the heck I'm going to eat for dinner. I've seen, let's see, what is it? Anna from Astral Lady Tarot and Lennon Smith, they did this like tarot chooses my day sort of like vlog style video where they would pull a card like throughout the day and be like, what should I do next? And yeah, I mean, why not? Especially on a day you have off, or, you know, even within a span of time. Yeah, there's so many possibilities there. You can use it to watch TV shows and help you kind of make understanding of that. Our whole Sibyl Unscripted series is a bit about that. I also like to watch murder mystery shows and predict the murderer while I'm watching. I don't know, what are some of the ways that you play with tarot?
I mean, I think that captures it. I do love talking about, and we do this a little bit in Sibyl Unscripted too. Like, I get very into novels that I'm reading or films that I'm watching, and am so deeply involved that I feel betrayed by a character, or like, you know, I'm rooting for them in a deep way. But if I can't figure out their motives or what's going to happen next, but I don't have time to read the full chapter, I'm absolutely pulling out the tarot deck, because I can read cards in a snappy way and I'm hungry to know like what's going on behind the scenes. It's a little, I like wonder at myself sometimes because that seems like an overcommitment to the realism of the world, but like there is something wonderful, I think, in using art, those of us who love the tarot, to suspend our disbelief and just enter the world of the cards, of the artist, or of what we're seeing or watching or playing with. And I wonder if you would agree that like sort of the messiness in the play is just surrendering to like the fun of it.
Yeah. I always have a deck on hand that is my, like, I'm just enjoying this right now kind of a deck. This is the one that I'll have nearby, and I'll just start flipping the cards over and looking at the images, whether I'm like on hold on the phone or waiting for something, and just really getting lost in the imagery of it. And like, what do I see there? And not with an expectation of what do I see there and what does it mean, but just what do I see?
Yes.
To me, that is such a form of play. It's just like observation and really, I don't know, looking and finding out more and picking up clues and stuff like that. Yeah, I think my favorite way to play, though, with tarot is to let it make grocery lists for me. That's my favorite.
Like, can you give us an example? Can you pull a card and tell us what this looks like? Because you and I talk about, I have no idea how to do what you're talking about.
Okay.
This looks like.
So I'll be like, because I have a kid, so we have to like do our meal planning. Otherwise, I mean, you just can't run to the grocery store that much throughout the week. And it's so much easier to know what the heck is on the menu for dinner, because we also have 2 ADHD adults in our household. And unless we have a plan, nothing happens. So I'll say like, oh man, what should we have for dinner on, one night this week? what's a dinner that we can have for a night this week? And I'll pull a couple of cards. I'm not prescriptive about it. And so I pulled the Ace of Wands and the Chariot, and it's like, we need an eating out night. You know why? Because we're gonna get in our car. we're gonna follow our bliss, and we're gonna get in a car and get in our car. And it's like, okay? So then I'll be like, okay, we can't eat out every night. So what's a meal that I can actually cook this week? Because we can't eat out every single night. Although I would love to. And I'll pull. I pulled 3 cards this time. Why? Because I could. So we've got our Knight of Pentacles and our Star and our Hermit. And so, I don't know, there's something about this, like with the water of the star, that makes me think of soup. And so I'll be like, okay, what's a soup? And like pentacles, potatoes. So let's do coins. We'll do potato soup of some kind. And the reason the Hermit affirms all of this is because he's in the dark, and soup makes me feel cozy. I don't know.
Like, I live. That is a perfect explanation.
Is it a real reading? Does it have anything to do with the tarot? No, but it does. It's a visual. What it is a visual springboard. That's what it is.
It's also a great way of practicing engaging with the cards. I love that. I need to try that. I'm trash at planning meals.
It's hard. And we'll plan, and then we don't actually make anything that we plan because we're too tired.
All right, guys, let's start to wrap up. Thanks for sticking it out with us. We had a lot of fun with this. Comment below to let us know if you try out any of our ideas, or if you institute any of our axioms, or if you have your own axioms or already have these as a part of your practice. We would love to hear about that. But we will wrap up with a question for the collective, as we usually do. And the question this time is beyond our card work. So you as humans, and not just readers of tarot and other cards, how can we all invite joyful messiness into our lives this week? How can we be playfully messy this week? And we're each doing 1 card, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'm pulling from Wisdom of the Depth. Knight of Cups for me.
I got the 10 of Cups, and I pulled from the Gypsy Palace Tarot.
You did it.
I did it. She was ready.
Okay, our Knight of Cups. What is in that image of the 10 of Cups? I didn't get a good look at it, and I don't know that deck.
So she's sitting in a canoe or boat in the water underneath a tree. And in the tree are some apples hanging down. And she's got her cup of tea right there with her.
I like it.
And there's a little face in the tree here, if you can see that.
Okay.
Actually, there are a few little bodies in the tree. The leaves are made up of kind of these abstract bodies. And there are rays coming out from behind the tree.
Tell me if how your 10 of Cups reads with this, but this Knight of Cups makes me think about, I always think of the Knight of Cups as a relationship-driven quester of some kind. And it feels like, part of the reason that I think a lot of us don't engage in joyful messiness is because we either feel surveilled by people. So we don't want to be seen as not taking things as seriously as we should, or we should be doing work and they're going to see that we're not doing work. Or we actually have obligations to meet for others. But this feels like hey, make this joyful messiness a joint venture, or like invite the people you love and care about into that journey. So whereas they might normally be like, what do you mean? I need you to do something that you would normally be doing. Make those people a part of the plan and play. Ask them to join you in making a mess. And I think there is something to that. How does that work for your 10 of Cups? How does that fit with what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially when you kind of look a little bit more closely, like you can kind of see all of the figures here in this tree above her. But she feels like such like the place from which so much of this is emanating, right? With the rays coming out from behind the tree around her. And yet there's something so like planted in her body language. Like she is seated, she's not moving, she's not active, she just is. And she's very inviting. Like there's nothing super closed off about this this woman sitting here in the boat. And I think, yeah, that invitation to come in, like you being that source of play for others, it's like there is such a loop feedback there between what we give and what can come back to us from that.
I like that.
Yeah. It just makes me think of like all of my years of teaching in theater and like, yeah, having to remind, especially my older students, having to remind them like to be playful and yeah, having to bring that energy into it for sure. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us this week. You can stay tuned for our weekly videos. We release at least one a week every Wednesday. And if you have suggestions for future topics, you can drop them in the comments below. You can also check the description box below for a list of all of the decks that we used, our social media handles, and where to go to book a reading or mentoring with either one of us. We're even available for some chill, playful tarot messiness if you're looking for a partner in tarot. But until next time, friends, we will see you in the lab.
Hi, guys.